Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
I'm Aaron.
And we're builders, architects, in Architects of the West Kingdom by Garphill and Renegade Games.
So in Architects, you are architects who are building different buildings around the West Kingdom.
You guys know that architects don't do any building, right? It's very important to me that you know that.
They design them, but
Maybe back then they designed and built.
The builders.
How is this in the future?
It could be.
Could be.
But you're getting the blueprints, which are on green cards, not blue cards. And then
There's so many problems with this game.
So essentially you're just placing workers around, and in this game you have more workers than I've ever seen in any worker placement game. You have 20 workers that you'll be placing around, and you can do things to recall them and mess with people and take their workers as well.
And one of the unique things about having so many workers is the first worker you send to a location doesn't really do much, but the more workers you send, the more workers do. Typically things are either you get X resources per worker here, or X plus 1 workers, but you can only place one at a time. It's not like I'm going to send 3 guys here to get 3. It's I'm going to send 1 to get 1, send 2 to get 2, send a third to get 3, and then Aaron goes and captures them.
Right, so that's the dynamic, is you're kind of investing slowly in, of course, you don't have to go to the same spot over and over again, but the more you invest in that one spot, the better that thing is for you. So the better that area looks to your opponents for capturing, because there's an area you can go where you pay 1 coin to capture people and put them on your board, and then you can either sell them to the prison to get money, or you can just keep them there, and the other player has to pay to get them back from you. So that is the dynamic that I think this game was aiming to make, and I think makes really, really well. The more I put there, the better it is, but the bigger target I have on my back.
And because of that, there is no recall in this game. That's one of those things in worker placement games. When there's no recall step, it always takes me a minute to really think about how to do it, because as you put them out there, you have to go to a spot, and there's not even a recall all spot that there's in some game. Mm-hmm. You actually have to go to a spot and pick one location to just release those from that location, or you can release them from jail, or you can pay to release them from an opponent if they've captured them. Mm-hmm. So that's something that can really trick you up, is I'm going to go here and here and here. That's all my workers, but I have to save one back to release some workers. But then if you spread all your workers out, you're only releasing 2 at a time, whereas if I put 10 workers here, I can release all 10 at once. But most likely, if you put 10 workers somewhere, someone's going to capture half your workers, you're definitely going to get them captured before you get there.
With the recall action, so the first time you go to the recall action, you recall one group. And just like with every other place that you're placing things, now that I place a second one there, I can pay a coin, do a recall, and then with that second one, do a second recall. So I could take 2 groups up. And then on my next round, if I had them all spread out where I had just 2 and 2 and 2, I could be okay, I'll place a third guy in the recall town center, and then I'm going to pick this group up, and this group up, and this group up. And you could also recall the guys from town center if you needed to, too. So it is very interesting that it isn't just the end of a round, everybody recalls them, or there's been a couple other things that in worker placements for recalling, but this one's just very unique.
When I'm teaching worker placement games to new gamers, and a lot of times I use worker placement games, I usually use the game Lords of Waterdeep. And then after we play, they're like, oh, that was really cool. And then I start saying, right, that's cool, but imagine if, instead of gathering cubes, you got dice. That's Champions of Midgard. Imagine instead of having a recall thing, you could bump another worker. That's Euphoria. Imagine instead of just putting a worker down, you could upgrade the workers, and they're different. That's Chimera Station. This is I was explaining it to that new player who just played their first worker placement game. I think in this game they were like, what if they just had a shit ton of workers? 50,000 workers!
50,000 didgeridoos.
Tens of thousands.
$80,000 a year.
$1 million.
My God, 1,000,000 years.
Cool.
Yeah. I will say one of the things that really tripped me up in this game is you have so many workers, but I feel like most actions you take are still really important. In some worker placement games, you can kind of fiddle around, develop your strategy, and you can do a little bit of that in this game, but one, because you need to get a lot of workers in one space to really get a lot of things and make it valuable, but 2, because it's not a super high scoring game. It's in the 30s, maybe high 20s, maybe to upper high 30s if you do really well. But those points are only scored over like 5 different things. Like 3 buildings you built, this track, and this thing, or maybe 4 buildings. But it's not like you have like, all right, I'm going to count up these 10 things I did here and count up all of these that I have, and I'm on this track over here. Because there's only a few ways to get points. If you use your resources to buy this card that gives you 5 points, and he uses a similar amount to get 7 points, like that's significant in this game. So you do have to be really intentional with how you're like strategizing where you're getting those points.
Yeah, like debt and prison can drop you down a little bit, but it's mostly the track, the cathedral, and the buildings. Because these other like 10 coins for one point, that's not very significant.
Yeah, I could
And
see
the
maybe getting
gold-
2 points off that.
Yeah,
if
at
you
most. I mean, because you could capture a lot of dudes and sell them, and you can get a bunch of tax. But when you go to the tax, you drop down some. So, like, it is mostly those 3 things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you're trying to get those coins, you're going down on the influence track, and then you're losing victory points that way. So it's kind of
And you can't even build on the cathedral when you're all the way down there.
Yeah, so-
you're losing, like, potential victory. I guess if you get all the way to the top,
and then drop down.
and then just, negate all those points you got on the cathedral.
I do really like the reputation track in this game, and there's a lot of games where like you could go the bad route, which is like easier and you get better things, but there's negative points for it. But in this one, like as you get worse, not only do you get negative points for it, but also like your taxing gets less because you're corrupt, so you don't pay your taxes. So there is some benefit to being bad in this game. You can say, okay, well, minus 8 points, but I'm don't lose 2 coins at taxing, so like maybe I can make that work for me. Or in Aaron's case, he got dropped way down there, did a lot of stuff, didn't pay tax, and then was able to bump his way back up. So that, and then if you go the other direction, it's worth a lot of points, but then you can't take corrupt action. So like
Can't go to the black market.
I
You
built
have
a
to
lot.
work honestly.
Yeah, you have to work honestly. So I do like how there's like the 2 different paths you can take. I like how this game implemented that feature.
Yeah, the black market is very tempting, and if you have already become super holy, you're up here, you can't take those black market actions, which, paying 3 coins, losing one of those reputations, and, getting a bunch of stuff. Like, right, the first one off the bat is 2 glass, and the stones
I
and
think it's
stuff.
marble.
Yeah, marble. It looks like glass.
Whatever. 2
You
for
don't
light
build a
blues.
glass. 2 light blue cubes, and then you get a gold cube and stuff. Like, they're really tempting. And also, like, going to the black market, you can buy any of the architects for 2 coins. Like, you just pick any of them. You don't have to go with the weird conventional thing over here. It's like, okay, 1 worker, you can get this level, 2 workers this, 3, unless you want to pay more coins to do it.
And it's essentially, if you go to the workshop, it's you pay 2 coins and 2 coins tax. Here it's 2 coins. So essentially, going to the black market is you just
Avoiding
don't
the
pay
tax.
taxes on them. But you can also take any
one
of them.
Yeah.
Although, alternatively, if you do go the good reputation side and work on the cathedral a whole bunch, you get these scroll cards for building the cathedral, which they're not quite as good as what you get in the black market, but is still a lot of good stuff, like 3 coins reputation, 2 reputation, a reputation in the gold. It's like you're still getting really good stuff up here in addition to all the victory points you're getting. So it's you have to balance how you do it and to kind of pick a path and take it.
And if you're going for the super, getting a lot of reputation, going up on that track, eventually it does no good. It's like, okay, you maxed it out. The only thing it does is it removes your debts. So if you're going to be going to the cathedral and building the best of the cathedral and you're advancing a bunch, it might be worth it for you to get your guys captured and sent to jail, because getting that debt, you'll be able to erase it by doing more work over here and selling things.
Or if early on you get a bunch of debt, you could then, instead of paying it off, just do a whole bunch of good stuff and they'll forgive your debt.
Exactly.
There are 2 things I do want to say about the player boards. The first one is I'm surprised at how much I liked playing with just the regular boards versus the variable player powers, specifically when teaching people how to play. A lot of the times like Baron Park or whatever, when they're like, oh, this, after you play the game, you should add this. I'm always like, no, we're adding that. Like those little scoring things, But with this, I feel like I should play it once base game, this side, before showing this to anybody else. Because while this is a special ability, more importantly, it's like incentivizing you to take a strategy because it starts you not in the middle of that track and you get to choose. It starts you on certain spots of the track, and sometimes people start with prisoners already and stuff. So like it goads you to play the game a certain way versus just giving you an extra thing you get to do. And I also want to say about these player boards is that when we got this game, the red player board was missing. So I went onto Renegade Game just through the normal channels, went to their website, went to the customer service or whatever. I wasn't like, I'm Tom from Neverboard Gaming, give me more. I didn't drop that clout. I know I've got a lot of clout to drop, but I didn't. I just went there. They got back to me within like a couple of hours. It was put into the mail the next day, and it came real fast.
I think you meant weight. You have a lot of weight to drop.
Overall, I thought this was a good game. I don't think it's an amazing game. I enjoyed playing it. I'm happy to play it. It definitely did some unique things with worker placement, and I always like seeing unique things happen. But then beyond that, like beyond having so many workers and where you send the workers is like how good they do there. That was kind of the only thing that really shone to me in this game. So it was good. You made a face. Is it just because that was...
Just thinking about dropping the weight.
So it was good, and I'm really excited to play it again, but I'm not going to say, like, this is game of the year, this was amazing. It was good.
I really like this game. The player interaction with the stealing other players with the town center action is just, it's so meaty, it's so good. Like, somebody could be like, okay, I'm getting my third brick, and you're like, you know what? Not anymore.
It's all the brick you're ever going to see.
And you go take their guys and just hold on to them. Like, it really ate Tom up when I did that. Like, I had 4 or 5 of his guys on my board.
No, you had 3, and that was the perfect number. I was like, I don't want to spend 6 or 5 gold for 3 dudes.
But you've already spent other guys in the guild, so you're already
I
losing a
was
bunch of
so
guys that
screwed,
way.
yeah.
And if you have them all spread out on the board, it's not worth you going out there to pick them up. So you're just like,
Yeah.
So it's just fun, just taking people's workers, either selling them off for money or just holding on to them so that you kind of do take away an edge from somebody who's, maybe doing good. I think that it's very, like we said right at the beginning, it's a very tight game. The scores seem to be pretty close. I mean, obviously, there's going to be somebody who's going to win, and there's going to be somebody who's going to lose. That's a game, right? But having the 2 tracks with, like, going down to the black market and doing, like, these special actions that are making you lose more and more points but rewarding you in certain ways is, always fun in a game. So I can't wait to get this back to the table.
I definitely agree with Aaron more than Wes. I really enjoyed it, like a lot of what we were saying, all the player interactions, the dynamic is really cool. It's very interesting. It definitely, after I teach somebody Lords of Waterdeep, I could easily hop them into this, no problem. But that's more of a testament to Lords of Waterdeep than anything. But I do agree with Wes a little bit that it's kind of been a little bit overhyped. Now that is, obviously we're on like social media and all that kind of stuff, so we see a lot of people talking about like game of the year. This is like one of the best worker placement games I've ever played. I'm like, it's good. I'd put it at like number 5 best worker placement game I've ever played. That's up there, and I just don't think it deserves a number 1 spot. It should definitely be on your list.
Yeah, I agree. I get it. It was a really good game. I really, really like it. I'm happy with one of them having it. Whenever they want to play it, I'm happy to play it with them. But it's not going to be a game that we're going to go out and say, hey, you have it? I need to go buy it too to make sure that I can look at it anytime I want to.
So if any of this sounds interesting to you and you want to pick yourself up a copy of Architects of the West Kingdom, we'll have a link in the description box down below.
And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. Ha! I feel like Garfield sounds like they're like, we should call it Garfield, and then they're like, we're gonna get sued.
Garfield.
There we go.
It's like Garful.
Garfield.
Garfield.
Garful.
Garfield.
Garful.
You guys-
Garfield.
Garful.